Hello, and welcome to today's Coach on a Couch. As I sit here in the fading sunlight, anticipating what's about to be a pretty spectacular sunset, so I'm going to head down to the water and take some pictures right after this. Today's reflection, as I have gone through a bunch of AI learning on the last couple of days and really looked at my own value stream, and I think I mentioned yesterday or the day before, just the interesting element to me that I spent the first chunk of learning about AI focused on the learning about how I work. And today I had the just moment of reflection of the amount of energy spent over the last couple of days and the amount of work and energy that I've put into improving that value stream. And it hit me that we talk about relentless improvement. We talk about the statements of getting better, of investing to make yourself more effective. And I think sometimes we forget that the word invest there, that the outcomes of retrospectives, that the results of the inspect and adapt sessions that we might do at a PI planning interval time, end of the month thing, end of the PI thing. My brain's a little tired today. But regardless, the outcome of reflection, the outcome of looking backwards and deciding what we want to do differently going forward is the beginning of work. It's not the end of the improvement process. It's the beginning of the hard part of the improvement process. Yes, it takes energy to slow down and look backwards and do that retrospective. Yes, it's challenging to get the whole team together or the right group together or the whole release train together to inspect and decide what that future could look like. But I think sometimes we forget the discipline and the real work that comes afterwards. Because often that work isn't just changing a policy. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just an agreement to do governance a little differently or to change how we arrive in the morning so that we're more attuned and together when we do our stand-up or something like that. But most of the time, what comes out of a good retrospective requires change, and not just policy change or meeting scheduling change or something that's quick to enact, but behavioral change and technology change and environment change that takes energy to enact, not just momentary, but sustained energy. And when that improvement gets into a habit change and new skills on the behalf of the humans that are operating within the system, that's where it gets actually quite difficult. And that's where I think some of the most impressive improvements and the most enduring improvements come about. It's not about learning. It's not about just using this new tool or injecting this new tool into my workflow. I'm going to make this personal for a moment. It's about learning the skills and the habits necessary for that new tool to fit seamlessly in the workflow and therefore be effective. If I'm using Fireflies as my transcription engine, it's building the habit of taking every video that I want to reference later and getting it in there and taking the time to pull it back out as a transcript and putting it somewhere. If it's about using AI as part of my research engine, it's building the muscle memory to pull up the reference generator every time I have an idea to check and see who did it first and where it came from and what their perspective on that was, and pull back the reference to that initial time. Because in 20 years of thinking about agility, there are many, many things that I can believe or mind that I actually got off of a blog by Mike Cohn or something Alistair Coburn said 19 years ago when I was looking at the crystal methods, or that Liz published about BDD 10 or 15 years ago that just became part of my mindset. But it was actually somebody else's credit. And to build that muscle memory of seeking habit, finding the reference, digging it out of blogs from 20 years ago, coming back, that's hard. That's a lot of energy. But it is something that an AI can help with, that Google can help with, and it becomes part of my muscle memory. And that's kind of the point, whether it's individual improvement or whether it's collective improvement, the human element of learning to use the new thing is probably the majority of the work and requires continuous attention. And when I worry about change in process, when I worry about change not sticking, I think what I'm really worried about is people and teams getting distracted before it becomes habitual, getting yanked onto the next improvement, getting yanked onto the next crisis. And this thing that has huge potential, if they're willing to invest energy, just becomes another idea that didn't work. Now, it's easy to look at this one and say, oh, if the thing was that hard, it wasn't good. But I think there's a differentiation in a team being able to do the hard things. If we only do the easy things that we can wave our hands and it's good enough, then we're never going to be better than average, because in theory, eventually everybody will do the hand wave and the tool grab and the good enough stuff. And if we want to be exceptional, if we want to create a team that is above the mean, above average, then the people on the team will need to put that energy in and put that work in to do something different and better. Came up in a couple different quotes. I was listening to Ferris talk to Ray Dalio this morning, and that's an old podcast. I'd listened to it before, but I was sharing it with Mark and trying to remember if I'd listened to it. Just in the first 5 minutes, it's that he talks about that pattern collection and that habituation. If you want to be above mediocre, you're going to have to go against the grain and go against consensus to get to something bigger and different. And I think that really applies in continuous improvement and looking internally at your competency growth, not just externally at your products. I was a little more rambly than most of these, but I think that's a perfectly appropriate Sunday afternoon sunset ramble through my thinking today. So I appreciate you if you're still with me, and I will see you tomorrow.